All right, welcome back. This is our second video in a series that honestly, I don't know how many parts it's going to go to. So it could be multiple, but for now, this is two. We are back with transaction coordinator extraordinaire, Ceara Kennerly. And for the sake of today's video, what we want to do, this is beneficial for both sellers to, understand expectations, for buyers to also kind of have a high level overview for what happens throughout the escrow process. So without further ado, I will let Ceara take it away. We're going to walk through a timeline that just really simplifies what happens and when.
Yes, this timeline, you guys, has been my go-to timeline ever since I learned how to be a TC. So the top of the form is just all the parties. So it lists the listing side, the buyer side, the lender, and our title company, title assistant, and escrow number. And if there's an HOA, we have the HOA information up there too. We're just we don't need all that for this example. So all of these dates come from your contract. So when you guys send me a new contract, I actually review it, like go through the whole thing page by page. And I gather these dates and I plug them into this Excel spreadsheet that will count business days and count calendar days and tell me if it falls on a weekend or a holiday, and helps me adjust the dates accordingly. So this is it's like the nuts and bolts of our contract. Like, these dates are what we're living and breathing by for the next 12 days. So the first date, like we talked about in the first video, is your earnest money deposit. So your buyers need to get that earnest money deposit into escrow by the due date, which is a business day, not a calendar day. They are different. So it's important to know that the earnest money deposit is the only one that is due on a business day. Ernesto, ask me why.
Why is that?
Because the buyer cannot make their earnest money deposit on a weekend.
These banks are closed.
The title companies are closed.
Oh.
Just can't happen. So the banks are closed, the title companies are closed. There's nobody there to process your deposit. So it has to be on a business day. So the next contingency that is typically due is the appraisal contingency. The appraisal contingency the appraisal itself needs to be done before the loan can be approved. So the appraisal contingency date should come before the loan contingency date. So that is typically by default 17 days, but is negotiable. All of these terms, all of these timeframes are negotiable depending upon the contract you are writing. So this contract had an 11-day appraisal contingency. So it's important to know when it's due, because if there are delays, you're going to need to ask for an extension. So anytime you are not going to perform on the date, the due date, you have to get an extension. Otherwise, you're technically out of contract. You could receive a notice to perform, and the transaction could be canceled if you do not perform on these dates. The next date is your loan contingency date. So this is where this time frame, these next 2 weeks, you and your lender are going to be talking a lot. The lender is going to let you know when the appraisal is scheduled. They're going to let you know when they've received the appraisal. They're going to let you know if your buyers are lagging in getting them any documentation they might need for final loan approval. They're going to want to see homeowners insurance for your buyer. You guys are going to be talking a lot. So again, this is a 12-day loan contingency, and typically it's 21 days. So this is a very, very much shortened loan contingency, which is common what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing right now too is a lot of extensions, because the appraisals, the appraisers, there's a difficult time getting them scheduled, and then getting the reports back is taking some time too. So just be mindful that there's the reality of what we are experiencing in the appraiser and the loan contingency timeframe. So even though you may want to shorten them to present a stronger offer, just know you may need an extension. And then the next contingencies are your inspection contingencies. So there's a time frame for the seller to provide reports and disclosures to you, and then there's a time frame for them to be returned, and also the inspection contingency removed. So you want to make sure that you have all of your reports, your buyer has reviewed everything, and that you're good to go. You don't have any other questions or concerns before you remove that appraisal or that inspection contingency, especially a real estate transfer disclosure statement, seller property questionnaire, and an avid from both agents. Those are super major important. So if we don't have those, we may need an extension. So the all contingency due date is basically the latest date of your contingency removals. So in this instance, we have an all contingency removal date of 12 days. So that means by the 12th day on March 16th of this contract date, we should be removing, everything should have been removed. So the appraisal is done, the loan is approved, you've reviewed all of your disclosures and inspections, and your buyer is like, let's go. We're ready to close, we're ready to move in, we're ready to sign whatever we need to sign. Everybody's on the same page. Now, the rest of the dates here from loan docs down to buyer possession date, those are all just based on how we know a transaction to run. So from the loan doc date down, we're working backward from close of escrow. So the close of escrow date is April 5th, which happens to be my birthday. Close of escrow date is April 5th. So we know that the funds need to be in escrow within a day or two in order for us to close on time. So that's just, we're making sure it's not a weekend or a holiday, and we're using our best judgment to determine when that funding date should happen. These are all shoulds, because if you have extensions or any delays, all these dates are going to kind of move around. So you just need to be aware that these are approximates. Your final walkthrough with your buyer should happen about a week before you close escrow. Not too soon, not too late. So it could be anywhere 3 to 5 days. We give it a week, just, realistically. So we also know the loan docs are due about a week before the lender can fund. So we put that about a week. So these are just dates that kind of keep you on track. Like, okay, if we're getting to March 30th and we don't have loan docs, we haven't heard from title about signing appointments, that's a red flag. So this whole calendar timeframe here is really important for you to just stay on top of. All of us need to stay on top of it. It's not just you, it's not just me, it's all of us together. Everyone needs to be following up on the same things. And then all of your terms. So these are who pays what, who's paying title and escrow, who's paying county transfer taxes, city transfer taxes, if there are any. Not every city has them. If there's a homeowners association, who's paying the transfer fee, who's paying for docs. Those are expensive. Those HOA doc packages are can be anywhere from $400 to $500 and take time. Is there a home warranty? Who's paying for it? Is it waived? The NHD report, that's almost always paid for by the seller, but sometimes the contract will be marked, well, we want the NHD and the environmental report. So that's an extra little report. So we want to make sure we know which reports are being ordered and who's paying for them. And all this information goes to title, and that's how they create their fee estimate. They send that out to the lender, and that's how they balance their work and get everything ready for closing.
Very cool. That was super helpful. I think really for agents, whether you're representing a seller or you're representing a buyer, being able to kind of ahead of time and proactively explain approximately what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, why it happens in that flow, just minimizes the question asking. And I think one of the biggest things I take away from this is that a lot of this is negotiable. It is flexible. There are standard dates per the residential purchase agreement, but those can be negotiated. People can choose to drop some of them if they want to be extra aggressive with their offer. The bulk of the buyer and seller activity is really within everything pre-contingency, and a lot of the disclosures are sometimes provided ahead of time. So towards the end of the transaction, it could get a little quiet in terms of buyers and sellers being active, because that's where title companies and banks are working to kind of finalize the transfer of the property to the new owner. And then in case you're wondering, if you're a new agent and you're wondering, well, why is it that the buyer or the seller is paying escrow, but then one of them is paying the owner's title? That's actually also technically negotiable, but there are guidelines given different cities and counties about how that works. And we can teach you separately as to where you get that information, but you can Google it. It's called Who Pays What. And there's PDFs that will show you traditionally who pays what in those cities and counties.
Exactly.
Cool. But this was great. I think anybody can even take this information and simplify it without as much information, and maybe build that in as part of your listing and buyer's presentation, just to simplify what to expect and when. But this is fantastic. I think that's all I had, unless you have anything else for us, Ceara.
No, do your Avid.
Awesome. Do your Avid. Well.